So, like what Ryan said, tonight we're going to do just testimonies, and we're going to do small groups. And I really enjoy nights like this because us just talking with each other and hearing what God is doing in each other's lives. And the reason why we do testimonies is so that we can know each other. That so often we know God works in the Bible, but God is also working actively right now in the lives of people. And you can learn tonight what God is doing in the life of someone. And remember this, God works in your life not so that you can keep it to yourself, but so that you can share it and give others hope. So our first youth leader giving a testimony tonight is Rachel, so give her a hand. And disregard that last one point. Gigi does not drive faster than me.
Yeah, I do. Everybody does. Everybody drives faster than Daryl. Okay, so we'll go back a little bit. My testimony today, I'm going to start. When I was in high school, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And about 3 weeks before my senior year of high school, he passed away. After he passed away, I was really angry, bitter, and hateful. And I felt alone. I mean, for the next 15 years, I felt like I was by myself. I had a husband, I had 2 kids, and I felt like I was still by myself. So you can imagine the kind of person I was. I was really rude and sarcastic, and like Luke 6:45 says, a good person produces good things from a treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from a treasury of an evil heart. And what you say flows from what is in your heart. And my heart was always hurt, so I didn't care who else hurt. As he said, growing up, I didn't know Christ, and I can remember very little about my dad's funeral service, but I do remember sitting there thinking that these pastors are paid just to say this garbage to make me feel better, and it's not working. And by the grace of the amazing God I serve, I no longer feel that way. He gently showed me how wrong I was. He placed his workers in my path and softened my heart to hear him. I came to this church, and the first song that they sang was Never Once. How about that? Never once did we ever walk alone. So in 5 minutes, surrounded by a room full of believers in one song, I understood that here I was all this time thinking I was by myself and never was. I remember reading an article one time by a psychology professor, and he stood in front of the room and he held up a cup of water. And he held the glass in the air, and everyone thought he was going to say, is it half empty or half full? But what he went on to say was, if you hold that cup in the air for a minute or two, it doesn't really hurt. If you hold it on for a few hours, your arm starts to ache. But if you hold onto that cup for days, eventually your arm's paralyzed and it's numb. And what he's saying is, it doesn't matter what's in your cup, it's how long you hold on to it. So how blessed are we to have Christ, to know that he takes that cup from us, that we don't have to bear our burdens. So not all of you will experience stuff like this in your life, heartache, like I did. It may be different, and it will all hurt regardless. You'll have family struggles and toxic friendships and a whole host of other things that will cause pain. But trust me, you always have something in your cup. So try not to hold on to the cup for a long time. Psalm 55:22 tells us to give your burdens to the Lord, and he will take care of you. He will not permit the godly to slip and fall. And I will say this, I am still sarcastic. I love to joke around, but people's feelings do matter to me, and he continues to work on me.
Thank you. Up next, we'll have Micah come up.
Hey, first of all, I just want to say thanks to Rachel for going. I don't know if you know about Rachel and her husband who had an accident this past week, but you have an update for us just so we can know, like we can pray for you too. Thanks for sharing. Second thing on there, I saw Rachel, it said you don't like hugs, but there was a T in there, so I didn't know if that was hugs or you didn't like thugs. Is it? Okay, all right. That's good. Gotcha. All right, hey, I'm going to try to make this short, which is really hard for me because I can go on for a while. Some of you have heard from me, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago. I kind of gave my testimony a little bit, but I'm going to focus on kind of one part and maybe give you a little bit more too. Is there anything up there that, yeah. Hey, I'm a Penn State fan. Is there any Ohio State fans in here? Hey, Colin. Hey, sorry. God bless you. Anyways, all right. I'll get back to that later. Wearing a cup is helpful if you're playing the frozen orange game. Anyways, all right. I'm going to go back to high school too, and I think a lot of us that have a little bit of a checkered past, we like to talk about, maybe the things that we did in high school, which some of us are not, we're not too proud of. I'm actually going to focus more on what I didn't do. Not what I did, but what I didn't do. Like many of you, I grew up in the church. I went to Camp Manawagon every year except for once. I went to conference. I went to retreats. And I don't know about you guys, but like many of you, you ride those highs, those spiritual highs. All right? And during those spiritual highs, a lot of times, is when God speaks to you. Okay? We call that the Holy Spirit, but God speaks to you in some way. And he asks you maybe to do something that you don't want to do or don't think you can do. I had those opportunities when I was in high school. And I know I told the seniors last year, I said, high school is that opportunity where you're kind of with people that you're kind of forced to be with sometimes. You get past high school, college, you're in the workforce, you kind of get to choose who you get to be with. In high school, sometimes you're forced to be with people. It's an awesome opportunity that you probably won't have ever again. And for me, I had many opportunities that I let slip through my fingers. But I want to tell you of a time for myself, and it was actually after high school. Unfortunately, it was in college, but where I did listen to God's voice and some amazing thing happens. It starts with my best friend, Sam. Sam always came up with some crazy ideas. Most of the time we looked at him and we're like, whatever, laughed at him. But he had an idea one time that stuck, that he wanted to do a ministry. And this ministry involved a VW van, the ones that like Scooby-Doo is in, it has peace signs on, stuff like that back in the 60s, all right? No smoke in the back or anything, but it involved that, and it involved going to churches in Johnstown to minister to high school students, okay? And that's kind of where it started. So I'm like, well, I'll take you up on this. So we started praying, him and I. This was in the fall. Him and I started praying. Another girl came in, mainly because we wouldn't have been very good ministering to the girl. So she came in, and then his brother came in, and eventually we had 9 people that wanted to do this ministry. And I tell you what, we prayed for months. We started in the fall, and we just started praying. We didn't know what was going to happen. On a Saturday night in the spring, we went to one of the churches, Sam and I, just to check it out. They had a Saturday night service, and we talked to the associate pastor afterwards, and we told him our plan. And his response to us was kind of like, well, I don't know about that plan, but our pastors have been praying for months for someone to come in and work with our young adult leader to work with college-age students. And that was it. We kind of got our leading. We worked with college students during the whole summer. We probably ministered to about 60 college students. There was probably only about 30 at that church, but 60 of all the churches that we kind of worked with, because we all kind of came together. We had 4 Bible studies. We did some social events. We did some outreach events. And at the end of that summer, we kind of went, did we really have an impact? Because I'll admit, we had a lot of fun. Just spent a lot of time with people. We weren't sure if we had an impact until towards the end, a lot of people individually came up to us to say, man, that was the best summer I ever had. And man, did I grow spiritually during that summer. And it kind of blew us away. Now, pardon me sharing this with you, and I could actually tell you more stories about the whole thing and how it all came together, but I don't have enough time because I've already gone over. But some of you are kind of in the same situation. Some of you maybe that went to camp this year, went to Momentum, went to OB or another ministry. Did God say something to you while you were there? And if he did, have you come back and you've kind of let that go? Satan's kind of got in the way. One of the things that Satan will use is just, the humdum of everyday living. And you start to lose what God had told you during that time. And my challenge for you is, if he's told you something, go and do it. I don't know what it is. It could be something in your school. It could be something in this youth group. It could be something, like a kid at school is getting bullied. You stick up for him. I don't know. It could be, whatever. It could be something on your sports teams or club team. I know I would have had a chance to impact people in my sports team when I was growing up, and I didn't take advantage of that. I know one verse that comes to mind if I think about sports is 1 Timothy 4:8, where it says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise in the present life and the life to come." Godliness is going to be held up more than what your physical training ever will. So I'll just encourage you, start with prayer. If God did tell you something, start with prayer. Get another person, share your vision, have them pray. Start working together with prayer. Let God do the work, and then you can just join in what he's doing. Thanks.
All right, we're going to have Becky Culp come up now. She'll share her testimony.
Daryl. I was thinking I'd probably give you or share a testimony of when I was in 6th grade, because I was thinking kind of the audience I was talking to, and then I'll share a story about when I was in high school, and then a quick story about what God's doing for me right now. When I was in 6th grade, they came through. I grew up in a big city, and they had to redraw the boundary lines, and so I did not get to go to middle school or high school with my good group of friends or my church friends, but God used that time to really show me that you can find Christian friends wherever you go. It doesn't matter where you are, that God will provide that, and then you can still stay friends with your church crowd even if you don't go to school with them. And so God used that in that time of my life. When I was in high school, I just finished my junior year, my 11th grade year, and we had a youth party to celebrate summer being on, and there were too many people on the trampoline, and it was very late, and it was too dark, and there was a bad accident, and it was my knee, and I ended up having to go through 2 major surgeries that summer to kind of build my knee back up where I could walk on it. But God used that time where I got to see my mom share her faith with my surgeon, and if you have to give something physically, like a knee or something, so someone can get a spiritual chance to get to go to heaven, it's worth it. Sometimes God puts Christians in places just because he's working in the heart of someone who's coming from a different direction that needs the Lord. And so another thing that came out of that surgery is when I grew up and became a mom, my little girl had to go through a very major surgery as a 10-year-old. And I think because I had walked through that and I had more confidence and I was more courageous, then maybe I wouldn't have been, or I knew I wouldn't have been, if God hadn't had me go through a major surgery as a teenager. Nowadays, God is really working on me, just not being someone who just rams my idea through. And so sometimes God has to give me a word picture for that. This summer, or just a picture. Anyway, this summer I was getting dressed, and I looked down on the long dresser, and I saw this very nice bandana made of Sharpie markers. And I thought, this neck is starting to look old. I need to cover it up. So I took this very nice Sharpie marker bandana and I tied it around my neck, and I looked just like an airline stewardess. And I walked into the girls' room to wake them up, and Grace is the first bed you came to, and she didn't even say a word. Both her eyes weren't even open, and she went like this. And I said, "What is this?" I said, "This works. This works. You ask anybody my age group, this around my neck works." Anyway, then the next 2 girls, A and B, woke up. They were not very nice about this around my neck. And I should have stopped there. God, ooh. So anyway, then I get the phone call. It's Mr. Phil. He said, be ready at 10 o'clock. We have a meeting with the lawyers, with the bankers, very important meeting. Yes, Mr. Phil, I'll be ready. So 10 o'clock came around. He drives up in his car. He's kind of in a rush. He's on the phone. I get in, and he looks at me. He kind of took the phone away, and he looked at me and said, what are you wearing? But then he was distracted. He got back on the phone, and I saw the pretzels. I was eating pretzels. So we make it into Hollidaysburg, and he puts the phone down. He goes, take that thing off. Yes, Mr. Phil, very quick, I'm taking this thing off my neck. He walks around to my side of the car, and he said, look at your neck. What? I looked in the mirror, you guys, my neck was stained. It was stained every color of the Sharpies. It was so bad. Phil said, get that blanket thing back on. Yes, Phil, I get it back on. I'm trying to put it. That was a bad meeting. That was a bad meeting with the bankers to life. So anyway, I will remember that. Just stop.
All right, we'll have Tim Campbell come on up.
Thank you. Sure. I'm going to sit if that's okay. Can everybody see? No? Okay, good. That's a tough act to follow. I mean, that's good comedy. Jeez. There's stuff about me. Do we have any Williamsburg people in the house? Anybody? No? Oh, well, Micah teaches there, but, okay, nice one. Daryl asked me to do this a couple months ago, and I thought about it, and the one thing I thought was, man, my story is too messed up and too long, so he said, just tell what God's doing in your life today. And the one thing that has been coming up, it's probably been a half dozen times in the last month or so, is Romans 12:2. You can see it up there. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God and what is good and acceptable and perfect. When something shows up that often, you tend to pay attention to it and ask yourself, what is God trying to tell me out of this? And the one thing there that sticks out to me is the word transformed. Does anybody know what transformed means? Everybody? Anybody? Nate? What's it mean? Yes, it means changed. And that is probably the one thing that none of us like to do. Change a lot of time can be painful. It's definitely uncomfortable. I looked up some other verses on when I see a word like transformed, it piques my interest. I look in the Bible. I do a search for the word, and it's found two other times in the New Testament, and it's talking about being transformed as Christians into the image of Jesus. And obviously that's a good thing, so it kind of piques my interest again. And just thinking about things that have been said, I think even in here, I think one time Pastor Daryl talked about change. And a lot of times when we pray, we ask God to change our circumstances. If you guys have a test today, oh, please let me do good on this test. We want to change in circumstances. And sometimes God gives that to us, but a lot of other times, what is really beneficial for us is when God changes our attitudes. But a lot of times, I think we have to be open to that change. We have to want it. We kind of have to see something in our life that we want to change and ask God to change it for us. And like I said, I think it's not all the time this way, but a change in circumstances a lot of times is selfish. I want it for me. But a change in attitude a lot of times is kind of more service oriented. Like you want it for you, but really it affects how you deal with other people. And as I thought about change, about transformation, I guess I thought it in especially to a crowd like this. There's kind of two different things. There's people who've accepted Christ, who already know Christ, and what change means for them. And I thought, I mean, for me this as well, change for them probably means to look at your life and see what needs to change. Do I have an attitude towards somebody or something that needs to change, and again, you can pray for a change of circumstances too. And sometimes, if there's something in your life that God wants out of your life, He will change your circumstances. I mean, because I know personally that has happened to me. Both of them have happened to me. I've had things in my life that God knew that I needed out of my life, and He has changed circumstances for me. But as I grow as a Christian, that's the one thing that I know. My attitudes need to change. My attitudes towards certain things need to change, so that I see things more like God. And I'm far from perfect, but I know that if I open myself up to that change, He will work in me for that change. And I guess the other thing I guess I wanted to say is, if you don't know Jesus, I mean, if there's people in here that don't know Jesus, if you want that change in your life, either a change in attitude or a change in circumstances, I guess I'd say the first step is just asking Jesus to be your Lord and Savior. And I know there's a lot of people in here that would pray for you if you would open yourself up to that. And talk to Daryl or one of the adult leaders or even a friend of yours here, because there are a lot of people here who really do truly care for you, and just open yourself up to that.